Hi, my name is Elijah Recher. This is my final project for 2310 history. I will be doing my project on the Cerutti Mastodon site and the plausibility of the people in North America had prior to the agreed upon date. All my sources will be cited below. And yeah, also, you can finally see my dog that I've talked to you about a few times. Um, anyways, during my lifetime alone, I've seen the date pushed for the people in North America. I've seen that date pushed about 2-3 times. Um, During my time in public education, that date was about 13 to 18,000 years ago due to Clovis culture in North America. And following that, in 2021, they found these the white sand footprints in New Mexico dating to about 23,000 years ago, which lines up with the concepts of interglacial during the last glacial maximum and the theory of the crossing at the Bering Strait. Um, Yet it's come to my awareness. In 1992, there was a site discovered in San Diego due to a highway expansion project by Dr. Cerutti, now known as the Cerutti Mastodon site, which could hold to push back the possibility of the people in North America by nearly 100,000 years, as well as showing us how shrouded our timeline is and how little we actually know. The site contains one disarticulated mastodon as well as 5 stones near the mastodon. The stones all have signs of impact and usage, as similar to other stone tools by humans. These are just very crude versions. And dating for the stones was done by matching the isotopes on the stones where they have friction points to the isotopes on the mammoth bones and inside of the mammoth bones where the mineral would be. So essentially showing a site that has a mammoth that had been down, taken apart, and disarticulated, and then had its bones broken to either make tools, get the meat off of it, marrow, something like that. And this site dating to 130,000 years ago has held up to a lot of criticism. Most of these sites that criticize the site tend to agree with the date, but just don't agree with the date of the rocks, or don't agree with the possibility it can actually be real. So essentially, them cherry picking the fact that like the mastodon is 130,000 years old, and that the soil around is 130,000 years old. The rocks might be 130,000 years old, but obviously it is not within a reasonable doubt. Yet, my project will be going over the plausibility of some type of humans making it here through a similar coastal migration pattern through the Bering Strait, just coming over and falling down during that time frame. Because with sites like the recently discovered caves in Morocco, where we found a Homo sapien remains that date to 300,000 years ago in North Africa, when previously accepted timelines had put us in Central Africa, maybe even closer to South Africa, 250,000 years ago. But we come to find a 50,000-year-old skeleton thousands of miles north. So that just further shows us the convoluted timeline that we have. My personal theory so far, due to my own research, which I'm sure has its flaws, but 130,000 years ago would have been the beginning of the last interglacial period, a very similar climate to what we live in now. So that's also been another point of contention of how would people have gotten here 130,000 years ago. But 130,000 years ago, that interglacial period would have just started, so water levels may have not risen that much that fast. So it's still very possible to have gotten from here, even a couple hundred years prior, maybe even 130,000 years ago. People like, there's not a lot of cut and dry, and the distance between the peninsula for Russia and Alaska is maybe 50 miles, even with water levels, which would have been similar to the water levels then. So not completely impossible, even during the hot summer months or even during the middle of winter when it freezes over completely. And it's not even like this theory would rewrite a bunch of other stuff. It would just simply be either some pre-Homo sapien humans or even Homo sapiens themselves possibly could have made it here and done the same thing with coastal migratory theory, because that would have been the path of least resistance. Obviously, arguments opposed to that could be made, like if somebody had made it here at that point, wouldn't there be evidence of a genetic divergence? Wouldn't there be evidence of remains? Wouldn't, like, there would be some other sites other than a singular mastodon kill site in San Diego. And while I agree with those points, and I do acknowledge that if people had been here for long periods of time and somehow managed to survive until other peoples had made it here and like created the genetic lineage of indigenous people in North America, there would be a large genetic divergence. When the information that we have shows that the genetic divergence between people who were located in the Siberian Peninsula and North America really weren't that different. So that leads me to come to the conclusion that either whoever made it here or whatever group made it here did not really live that long, possibly dying off and maybe just not really sticking around long enough. Because if you can get across, chances are you can get back. We don't know maybe how far south it leaves a lot of room for speculation. And another thing is, if it wasn't Homo sapien, who was it? I mean, and those possibilities are almost endless, because at that time there would have been, I think, about 6 or 7 other hominid species, and including Neanderthals, including Denisovans, like, and we have no evidence of any remains in North America. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure the oldest North American human remains ever found is probably about 18,000 years ago. But we know that people were here before that, because obviously the footprints. And obviously archaeology and anthropological studies are science, and you need to have evidence before you can come to a claim. But speculation is also always fun. A lot of people come across this stuff and start speculating that, oh my god, they're ancient bullshit, you know? Fuck. So just to wrap up the theory, I do believe it is implausible that people made it here, and that people maybe lived here for long periods of time prior to our date of peopling, but it is not possible. There's plenty of evidence to show that we really don't know what was going on at this time. Like I mentioned, the Moroccan skulls and skeletons, even to the Cerutti site having very decent evidence of stone tool usage, as well as, I mean, our environment is constantly changing. Water levels rising, even without anthropological, even without human interaction. Plenty of sites have been lost to the sea. Plenty of sites will never be found. And I believe that within the next 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years, there will be plenty of more sites found in North America that will possibly even support or tear apart this Cerutti site, whether it just be a one-off site of there's no tangible evidence and nothing else, or it just comes to find out that people had been here for so much longer than we thought, and we just hadn't found them. But I'm gonna go and wrap this up for your time. I'm gonna edit and cut this video.